Well, Neil, it's great to be here in your trophy room with this magnificent array of trophies and a few Star Wars characters thrown in there as well. But looking forward to another snooker season. We're off to Riga now in a couple of weeks for the start of the season for you. A tournament you've won twice, defending the title. How excited are you to get out to Latvia and with a chance to defend that?
Yeah, it's been a good sort of hunting ground for me the last few seasons. I've been able to go out there and win the tournament twice and get my season off to a flyer. I think last year it was really good. It was the first of three ranking events that I won, and making three out of the finals as well, which was definitely the best season of my career. So had a really good break. Like most of the players, I've had a good sort of like couple of months off, and yeah, so it's a nice tournament to sort of like start the season with to feel my way through and try and get off to a good start.
Yeah, as you said, so prolific last season. Three ranking titles, six finals in all, four ranking finals in a row towards the end of the season. Can you put your finger on why you were so successful last season?
I think it's the first time in quite a few years that I've been able to practice every day, sort of like really good long hours. I was able to build a really good amount of consistency throughout the season. A lot of really good results, very consistent. And yeah, once I sort of started to get on a roll, I sort of maintained it throughout the whole season really. And to finish off the season with four finals in a row, going to the World Championships was pretty incredible. I think probably the birth of Penelope maybe gave me that extra little boost along the way. Maybe it's a very special feeling to become a father. The first time and the second time, and yeah, I just think it just gave me that extra bit of I don't know. I seemed more relaxed around tournaments, and I was able to play my best snooker.
Going into the World Championship, you were one of the favourites, particularly after O'Sullivan got knocked out in the first round. You played so well for the first couple of rounds, going into the quarter final. I mean, playing John Higgins, who of course is an animal at the Crucible, so hard to beat. But do you,
Chalk gate.
do you maybe look back on the World Championship and think it was a missed opportunity for you, given how well you were playing?
I think that making four finals in a row, you need a lot to go your way. You need a little bit of luck here and there. And I think the first couple of rounds of the World Championship, I was playing really well. And I mean, I was convinced that I was going to be playing in the final. I thought that somebody was going to have to play absolutely out of their skin to beat me and to stop me from winning another world title. And then yeah, I came up against John. Very tough playing conditions, it must be said. And probably the worst player in the world to play under those kind of circumstances is John. And John was not having the best of seasons himself, so was incredibly determined, I think, to at least take something away from a poor season by his standards. And throughout the match, it was very tough. Conditions didn't really allow either of us to get going and to sort of make breaks or win frames quite easily in quick time. Every frame was very hard fought for, and I think eventually it probably just caught up. Even though I did really well to go ahead of John at certain parts in the match, I think his nous in the tactical department was probably a bit stronger than mine on the day, going in that last session, and in the end he deserved to win.
Winning a second World Championship, is that the biggest ambition you've got for the remainder of your career?
No, not really. I think that I'd rather win more titles than just one more World Championship. I think the tournament's changed a lot over the last 5 or 6 years. I think that many other events now are, not quite as big financially, obviously, but in terms of prestige, I think there's a lot more events now that are a lot more even to the World Championship, where the World Championship used to be the only kind of real big tournament that you wanted to win that kind of established your career, whereas now there's probably 5 or 6 really big events that we have now, and so I'm just trying to win as many ranking events as possible, trying to climb the ladder of ranking event winners and establish myself as hopefully people look back on it as a really great player of the game.
Yeah, you've gone just ahead of Mark Selby, of course, on that list. I think 16 ranking titles now. So looking ahead to the new season, do you believe that you can be just as successful, if not more, than you were last season?
I think 6 finals is a really big ask. I don't know how often that's been done in the game, especially four in a row. I'm definitely not expecting that, because I think the last person who did that, I think, was like Stephen Hendry in 1990, 91 or something like that. So it's quite a rare feat. But yeah, everything's great off the table, so I'm able to commit myself to the game just as well as I did last season. So I'm not going to put myself under the same kind of expectations to have a season like I did last season. because I thought last season was one of those exceptional seasons where you look back on in your career and think very proudly of that. So I'm just trying to make myself a better player than what I was last season. It's going to be hard to do, but there's little areas that I think I could improve on. Then I'm going to try my best to do that, and hopefully that'll equate to more trophies.
It felt like, particularly in the second half of last season, yourself, Judd Trump and Ronnie O'Sullivan were very much the three informed players and kind of maybe moved ahead of the pack a little bit. Do you see a similar kind of scenario this coming season?
Yeah, I think the second half. I think first half of the season it was Mark Allen and Ronnie O'Sullivan, I think. But then the second half, I really came into the fold. Judd did as well, and then Ronnie, was playing brilliant going to the World Championships as well. So yeah, I think if you were to tell me at the start of the World Championship, probably the three that would win it, I'd say it probably would have been one of us three, and it proved to be the case. So what that does is it creates the other players like Mark Selby and Sean Murphy, John Higgins, Mark Allen. They're going to look at that and want to improve as well, and to be part of the ones being talked about winning tournaments. Because as a top player myself, when I struggled a couple of years ago, it's not nice when you're sort of like out of the frame in terms of talking of who could be the potential winner of big events. So those guys will be doubling their efforts over the season to try and put themselves in the frame for that as well.
How impressed were you with the way Judd played, particularly in the final at the Crucible?
To be honest, I actually didn't watch a single ball of the final. I was pretty gutted with the way I lost. I thought that under the circumstances, I thought it was pretty rough that I didn't go out losing with someone playing really well. I kind of like got out scrapped, and I watched a bit of John's semi-final with Dave Gilbert, which kind of made it worse in a way, because I saw how bad John was playing, and then Dave couldn't really put him away. I think that it would have been good to see Dave play it in the final. I thought, have someone new playing in a final, and so I watched a bit of the semi-final and was kind of really gutted for Dave really at the end there, because he had that huge kick at 16 all when he looked like he was going to make a break and go through, and obviously got really emotional at the end, and I had a bit of a lump in my throat watching it actually as well. You could see how gutted he was. So, but I'm sure he's going to be a player that will win something next season for sure. But yeah, the final itself, obviously Judd, to beat John Higgins by that scoreline, he must have played fantastically well, no doubt. But I did feel probably going into the final that that Dave probably would have had to be the one in the final to give Judd a really good run, because John, after my quarter final with me, he kind of looked on his last legs. And in the semi-finals, I think it's probably just Dave's inexperience why he didn't sort of put John away comfortably in the end. And then Judd, I think, you look at the scoreline and the breaks made, it just probably looked as though it was a bit more of like a practice session, in terms of once he started pulling away, then there was no way John could really come back.
Yeah, David Gilbert, he's done really well last season just to get into the top 16. Of course, there is new talent coming through, but do you feel in a way it's harder than ever to get to the top of the game purely because there are so many good players maybe in that sort of top 10, top 16 bracket?
Yeah, I think you look at the current top 16 and probably 13 or 14 of them, would be probably top 4 or 5 players in the world, 20 years ago. And so it gets harder and harder. But what that does, from my perspective, because I've won kind of every major trophy there is to win in the game, so it makes it exciting for me to try and get better, to try and keep improving my game and take it to new levels, which probably I didn't think were possible, because the new players coming through are raising everyone's game, because you have to play so well to win tournaments these days. And the players, the standard sort of bat way down in the order, I suppose you could say, to use a cricket term. Like the standard of players, even guys ranked 100 in the world, are capable of beating anyone in the world on their day, and that just wasn't possible even sort of 6 or 7 years ago.
So at this stage of your career, how do you improve your game? How do you keep getting better?
It's just minor little tweaks here and there. I've never been one to mess around with technique too much. I spent a lot of time in developing that over time, where I've got to a point where I'm really happy with where my technique is. So it's just about improving tiny little things, like maybe little shots that come up once every 5 frames that maybe you don't practice. Maybe start practicing those a little bit more. If you think you're a little bit weak in the rest department, practice with the rest. It's just the tiny little things. I analyse my matches all the time. even the World Championship, the first thing I did when I got home was watch my whole quarterfinal with John Higgins. Even though the table played pretty awful, there were still a lot of things I could have done differently, which probably would have meant that I would have won the match and given myself a great chance of winning the title. So it's just going back, analysing, could you have played this shot differently? Just tiny little 1%ers that you're trying to improve on.
And you've mentioned your personal life, becoming a dad again. How kind of happy and settled are you in your personal life? Is it kind of the happiest you've ever been on that side?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolutely, for sure. Having Penelope, Milla's probably not too happy with her sleepless night she's going through at the moment, but we're in a pretty good routine in the off season where she's staying up a bit during the night with Penelope. I'm able to get a full night's sleep, but then in the mornings I take Penelope for 3 or 4 hours and let Milla catch up on her sleep. So it was important to get that in before I start playing my season, because once my season starts, it gets really hectic. But yeah, everything away from the table just couldn't be better, and that's the reason why I think you saw me play so well last season, because it was the first time probably in 3 seasons where I was actually able to go out and play my best.
You've spoken very openly about the challenges that yourself and Milla have been through in the last few years, the struggles she had with depression and then your own video game addiction. And I think the way that you've talked so openly about that has been quite an inspiration to a lot of people who have faced similar problems. Is that a decision you made to talk openly about it and to try to help other people?
Yeah, because I think when you read up on celebrities and that, overdosing on prescription medicine and stuff like that, committing suicide. Yeah, I used to look back on that and think, how could this person be depressed? They've got millions of dollars, they're a movie star or whatever, and then when somebody close to you goes through those sort of things, and we don't ever struggle to with anything financially. We don't have any problems in our lives in that regard to what normal people would think that is the problems in life. When something like that happens, then you realise it can happen to anybody, and then it's really important to talk about it, because ever since doing that, over the past 3 years, the amount of messages and things I got with people who have struggled with anxiety and depression has been incredible. I think Milla's been a really big inspiration to many people, especially to other sort of like mothers out there as well. And you look at other sportsmen that are coming out talking about it now. I think Tyson Fury's documentary on his anxiety and depression battles was absolutely wonderful. It was because watching that, I was watching. Obviously, Milla looks a fair bit different to Tyson Fury, but it was actually talking about the exact same things, and it was incredible. So the more people that can talk about it, the better it is, and the more we can understand it. And so I feel as though I've put myself in a really good position now where I can sort of really help people as well if they're struggling with the same sort of thing.
And do you think, being quite a high profile figure, it's important for people like yourself in that position who people look up to a lot to kind of set an example?
Yeah, absolutely, because there's obviously the people who actually deal with the mental illness themselves, and then there's the people who actually have to play the really important supportive role, where I found it really tough, sort of like being in the rock in that situation. So I'm having to try and go out and compete and try and win snooker tournaments, while at the same time be a huge supporting role for my family. And it's very difficult to balance the two out until you can actually sort out the root of the problem, which is what I put so much time into. And then finally, Milla's come through it with flying colours, and then that's allowed me then last season to just completely focus on my snooker and not have to worry when I was travelling away at tournaments. So I'm always open to talk to people on Twitter or Instagram or whatever it is about these kind of issues openly as well. I don't mind who's watching, because I think mental illness has created like a really bad kind of stigma of like there's something seriously wrong with you, where it's not really like that at all. Once you understand it, it can actually happen to anyone at any time. And hopefully we can get into a day and age where people can actually just talk about it casually, like saying, yeah, I'm just having a bit of anxiety at the moment, and people around them can go, yeah, no problem, like it's no issue. Because a lot of people, you could be sat around with 5, 6, 7 or 8 people, and someone could be really struggling with their anxiety, and you wouldn't know any better. They're putting on fake smiles or whatever, and you just don't know. We're definitely getting that way in society, where it's becoming really accepted.
Great. Well, it's great to see things coming together for you, Neil, on and off the table, and best of luck for this season.
Yeah, no worries, mate. Thanks.
May the force be with you.
Yeah.